All right. Thank you for that, Amina. Hi, everybody. It's good to see people here. I know we're going to have more people joining over the next few minutes, but we're going to go ahead and get started and jump in. Excited to close out what has been a four-part series with our partners at Transcend over the last month or so, where we've been able to together dive into four innovative models that are a part of their network. And so we're excited to be here with you. It's good to see the many locations across India and the world that are joining in. I live in Bombay, but I'm currently in Kanpur, so it's a school that is a part of the Circle Network. I'm excited to be spending this time with you. So before we jump in and before I hand this over to Cynthia and introduce her, I am very curious to be able to dive in. Give me just a second. Let me get this thing up and rolling. And so what I'm curious to be able to do, folks, is to better understand just what brings everybody here today. And so what I'd love to do is to be able to come on over to the chat box. Something has intrigued you. Something has basically sparked an element of curiosity. Something has brought folks here. And I'd love to be able to hear from folks. So come on over to the chat box with me for the next 2 minutes or so. While Amina goes back to that music. And we're just going to try to basically better understand, like, what's brought you here? What are you hoping to learn? What are you hoping to take out of this? And we're going to spend about 2 minutes with that, and then we'll move forward. Thanks for that, Vilasha. Yeah, learning to lead. Yeah, thanks for that, Jeff. So let's hear from everybody here. Just what brings you here today and what has you curious? Thank you for those of you coming in. Yeah, thank you, Swapna and Laura. At 30 more seconds. Amazing. Thank you all for this. While these thoughts keep coming in, helpful to see. I'm going to keep me screen sharing. Perfect. Helpful to see all this stuff coming in. Please keep posting. Curious to know just what's bringing people here today. Exciting to see just a variety of different reasons that people are joining us. We're going to try to build off of those. Cynthia, no pressure, but a lot of people very curious from many different lenses today. And so we're all excited to be here with you. Folks, we at the Circle, everything that we do is rooted in this one big foundational belief. Every single thing that we do here at the Circle really comes down to this big foundational beliefs. And that belief is just that all children have aspirations and dreams. And every Indian child, regardless of their background, deserves a life that is filled with both opportunity and choice. And we believe that holds true for every single child across India. To be able to deliver on that well, what we do at the Circle is we're on a mission to reinvent schools, to reinvent programs that are serving kids, to reinvent teacher institutions that empower students from low-income communities to build an India that is both free of poverty and filled with love. We do three big things at the Circle in pursuit of this. One is we run a network of school and after school programs across the country that we do by incubating social entrepreneurs who want to start new schools. Our hope is that some of you are actually those future entrepreneurs sitting with us today. We also run something called labs, which bring program and forums like this together to be able to get educators together to learn. We hold forums and workshops and 5-week workshops and 3-month programs, all available to educators across the country. If you are curious to learn more about that, join our listserv or follow us on social media, and you will continue to get updates on when those are available. And our third big program that we run in pursuit of this is something called Circle U, where we are trying to reinvent the state of teaching across the country by working in depth with new teachers to be able to equip them with the skills and knowledge to reinvent for kids from low-income communities. All of this work, folks, is rooted in a larger student vision that we believe revolves around reinventing the me, helping students to be able to prepare to discover a new me, and also preparing kids to be able to shape a better we, to shape communities around them. And we believe that the outcomes that we anchor ourselves in for kids matters, and they matter a lot. Which outcomes we subscribe to matters. But we also believe that the experiences that kids have, the types of experiences that they have matter a lot. And to be able to lean into those experiences, we partner closely with Transcend. And they've actually started to be able to codify this and document this into what they call leaps. And those leaps really are trying to say, how do you be able to basically take kids from an era of industrial era learning that the world has been largely built around, where we are preparing kids for jobs that don't exist in many ways anymore, to an era of extraordinary learning and learning that is unlocking every young person's potential to be able to thrive in a fast changing world, but also to be able to shape that world. And those leaps, when you double click on them, come down to these big things. The leap from a narrow focus of a child to a whole child focus, the leap from isolation and conformity to one that is focused on connection and community, the leap from low expectations to one that has high expectations for kids, one from irrelevance to relevance, from one size fits all to customization for each child, and the leap from learning that is passive compliance to one where kids actually have agency. And the model that you're about to dig into right now is actually going deep into one of these leaps, and that is the whole child model. This is a model that has been implemented in 34 schools across the US. It has been proven to be able to basically produce results across multiple dimensions. And that model is actually starting to build off of how do you actually take this from this narrow focus to a whole child focus? And how do you move kids from one where they're rooted in isolation and conformity to one where they are rooted in more connection and community? And how do you basically build something where kids are thriving and where classrooms are thriving, where students feel safe, where they feel loved, where they feel valued, and the schools and the communities around them thrive? I'm excited now to introduce you to Cynthia Robinson-Rivers. I met her about 2 months ago when I had the deep privilege of going into Van Ness, an elementary school in DC. That was at the very strong recommendation of Jeff Wetzler, one of the co-founders of Transcend, who was on this call with us as well. Came and he said, you know what, you have to visit this school and you have to be able to spend time with Cynthia. And while I was there, I think I was just blown away by so many different facets of what was happening. I walked in and I saw a school and a model was co-created with kids. I saw a school and a model that was designed actually for kids, and was designed in ways to be able to take into account every single detail of what the learner needs. I saw a model that actually looked a lot like a coffee shop that I would walk into on a rainy, cold day because it felt warm. It felt like an area where actually I would want to be and I would want to spend my time. It felt like an area where kids would want to be. Adults in that school had thought about everything from lighting to what the walls should look like to how much input parents had. I saw a model that spoke not just to helping kids produce academic results, but to helping kids thrive as whole human beings. Um, and I came back thinking in a day and age when we are actually trying to figure out how to lean into this demographic dividend across India, what would it mean to keep in mind the whole child across India and the design for that? And so Cynthia comes with more than 25 years of experience as an educator, starting as a classroom teacher in Oakland to working, in DC public schools, the District of Columbia public schools, to working at Transcend, to really being the pioneer of the model that you're about to hear, which, yes, happened through her time at Van Ness, where she was the head of school, but has now scaled and is working with, more than about 3 dozen schools across the US. Cynthia, it's a privilege and a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for taking this time. I'm going to hand this over to you to walk us through some of the incredible work that you're all up to and what you're learning along the way.
Wow, thank you so much. I deeply appreciate the very generous introduction. Good morning for me, good evening for all of you. And thank you so much for allowing me to join the fourth of this series. I'm excited to share more about the work that I do and about the whole child model. So let me give you a quick overview of what this model is. So if you go back and rewind with me to 2015, Van Ness was a school that was in a neighborhood that was very impoverished and filled with mostly public housing. And the school was demolished, and actually most of the families and the students that were in this neighborhood went away. It was rebuilt, and the neighborhood advocated to rebuild the school. And the neighborhood then was a mixed income neighborhood with kids and families from all different places. And that's when I was appointed as the head of school. I had a huge charge. This was a community that, while it had the trappings of poverty and many students who had faced developmental trauma, it also had quite affluent students during a very polarized time in our country where people from different backgrounds were not getting along with one another. So I had the double charge, the double goal of making a community and a school environment that felt welcoming and warm, that encouraged safety and belonging for our highest need students. But that also was a place where kids from different backgrounds, Black, white, rich, poor, could come together and to connect with one another and to have empathy for one another. And so as I was starting, I spoke with the community, with the parents, with the teachers, and said, if we're going to be successful at this, what does our school need to look like? What do we need to focus on? And that's when we realized, thinking about kids' social and emotional development, their well-being, and how we could give them the skills for success in life outside of academics, was the thing that we were going to focus on. Within a year, we started to partner with Transcend. And Transcend, as you just heard, is a national nonprofit that works with communities to transform student experiences from the description on the left, industrial era learning, towards extraordinary learning for all students. And like Sandeep just shared, our model focuses on two of those leaps in particular: whole child, so not thinking about just students' cognitive development, and connection and community. So instead of school being a place where you learn in isolation and conformity, or even worse, competitiveness, instead you're collaborating and cooperating and learning with and alongside the peers that are in the classroom with you. And so we developed this approach with this in mind. I'm going to share about it in detail in a moment, but I think it's easier actually to just get a snapshot of a day in the life in this model for one single student. And so I'm going to take you briefly through what a typical day may look like. You're going to hear about this student named Janaea, a student that had a hard time in school. So not a student for whom school was easy and could follow the routine. But this was about 2 years into her receiving the supports that the whole child model offers. And you'll see, while imperfect, she's showing a lot of skills. I want you to listen to see and hear how the environment is safe and affirming for Janaea, how she's built trusting relationships with the adults and other students in her school, and the ways in which she's developing social and emotional skills as I take you quickly through a typical day for her. All right, so Janaea comes to school and she is greeted at the door to her classroom by her teacher. There's a poster outside of the classroom that gives her choices on how she'd like to be greeted. And she says she wants to do a dance off. Her teacher then asks her how her soccer game was yesterday, and Janaea shares it. She's pretty sad because they lost. She comes into a classroom that's beautiful, that's inviting and warm, that has spaces for learning and spaces that also affirm her. She immediately sees her picture on the wall, the artwork that she made, and her voice in her written essay. And she sees her family on the family wall. She sees her mother at the fall festival that happened earlier that year. She knows exactly what to do. There's an image showing her how she puts her things away, where to get her breakfast, what exactly to do next with both words and pictures. And then she goes and she sets a goal for the day. She chooses her goal and then she writes it down, and she's choosing to take care of herself and others that day. It's time for a strong start. So Janaea and others get ready to join the rug, engage in this series of activities in the morning that gets students ready for the academic day. And she loves the handshake that she does with her peer, where she does the purposeful partnering as part of the Strong Start morning routine. During Strong Start, she sits in a cube chair because that's what's best for her, while others sit on the rug. And on her way, she gets bumped by another student, gets her quite upset. But instead of pushing him, she uses her assertive voice and she says, "Bothers me when you bump into me. Next time, watch where you're going." The student agrees and they hug it out. Morning meeting ends, and it's time for Janaea to go for her 5 minutes a day daily interaction with Senor Freddie. So she leaves her class and she joins him for her time-love connection. And she just really enjoys this one time where every day she gets to spend time with a loving adult who asks her how she's doing and checks on her. She comes back to class and she immediately sees one of her classmates is not doing so well. He's headed over to the centering space. This is a space in every classroom where kids can go gain composure when they're feeling upset. And because her goal was to take care of herself and others, she makes a note: I'm going to check in with him and make sure he's doing okay at some point today. It's time for recess. And yesterday, Janaea hit and pushed another student at recess. So she knows she doesn't get to go to the regular recess. She's got structured recess. This is a small group time where she and a couple of other kids who have had a hard time playing safely play in a learning environment where they are learning how to play safely, but not losing their recess entirely. After recess, she reads the after recess social story and gets ready to go back inside. And as they go back inside, Janaea is the materials manager. She takes this job really seriously. So she goes in ahead of the other students and sets out the math materials as the class gets ready for the rest of the afternoon and enjoy learning in math time. I won't go through the rest of the day to dismissal, but I think you get a sense of some of the different components of the whole child model and how they show up in a student's day. And you can pause for a second since you've just learned about a few different aspects of the model and think, how did you see this as a safe and affirming environment? What were those trusting relationships that Janaea was able to build? And what social and emotional skills did you see her developing? And as you think about that, take a second and just put into the chat those things that you saw from her day. All right. As those are coming in, I'll zoom back out and share an overview of some of the things that you just saw on that typical day from Janaea. So whole child model is a 3-part approach to student well-being. It starts with care. This is a set of school-wide routines, universal tier 1 supports that every student receives and most are able to be successful with. It also has boost. Those are tier 2, tier 3 interventions and strategies for that small number of kids that have a hard time at school, who often absorb the majority of the adults and teachers in the school's energy, even though they are only a small portion of the school community. And then lastly, family circle. So this is our approach to working with families, ensuring that they feel like they're equal partners in a student's education and leveraging the skills that they bring. If we were to double click on CARE, that stands for compassion, assertiveness, routines, and environment. And it includes things like that strong start routine in the morning, the physical design of the classroom space, and even the language and the tone of voice that a teacher uses when he or she is working with the students. Here's Strong Start, which you saw a little bit of in Janae's day. Students come in, they get a personalized greeting, they get an opportunity to build community with the entire class and then build connection with one student in particular through the community building and then the purposeful partnering activities. Each day, students learn an explicit practice strategy for regaining calm if they're upset. We call that breathe and focus. And then every day, students set a goal. So the understanding that if you set a goal, you tell someone about it, you know you're going to be held accountable, you're more likely to meet that goal. Another example of CARE is the classroom design. So similar to how Janaea had words and pictures to help her understand what to expect, you can see this visual schedule on the left does that same thing. In the middle, this is a picture of a centering space, a place that you can go to instead of leaving the classroom when you feel upset. You can go to this space, calm down, and then re-enter classroom instruction. And then on the right, you can see some of the examples of how we aim for the classroom to show kids how much they're valued by making it beautiful for them. Having plants in the classroom, having pictures of the students and their families. All of this is rooted in brain science. There's a clinical psychologist, his name is Dr. Bruce Perry. He wrote a couple of pretty famous books. One is called The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog. The one that many of you may have heard of is one he wrote with Oprah Winfrey. It's called What Happened to You? We take his neurosequential model that he uses in therapy and we apply it to the classroom. So the premise is this: if you are fearing your physical safety, maybe on the way to school, it's actually dangerous and violent as it is in many neighborhoods in Washington, D.C. The part of your brain that's working is your brainstem. You're in what we call your lizard brain. And you might be feeling like fight, flee, or freeze. And in that state, you're definitely not ready to learn. If a student is in that state, we would help them to regulate. That's when the breathing strategies come in. That's when sometimes we might not even say a word to a student. We would just sit beside them and help them gain calm. In other instances, a student may be feeling overwhelmingly emotional. Something difficult might have happened on the way to school, or if this is during the school day, maybe at recess. Or for students who have suffered trauma, they may perceive threats that aren't even there. And if a student is in that emotional state where their limbic system is in control within their brain and their amygdala might be overly active, we would help them be related, right? We would relate to them, validate them, affirm them. We would listen to them with empathy because we know that that emotional state a student is in is also not one in which they're ready to learn. Where we're trying to get students is into a reasoning state where the prefrontal cortex part of the brain is in control. They're calm, they're alert, and they're ready for academics. And all of those different parts of Strong Start that happen for us between 8:45 a.m. and 9:05, the first 20 minutes of the day, seem like they're for being warm, welcoming, fuzzy, but reality is it's rooted in this brain science because we're trying to bring students into this reasoning state so that they're more able to learn. Many students, all those supports, Strong Start, Tier 1, still are not effective. These are kids that come with some pretty serious challenges and show it with some difficult behaviors. And we have both proactive supports before a child has a difficult time and then responsive ones if a child has caused harm to others in the community. TLC, when Janaea went with Senor Freddy, that's an example of a proactive one. We would survey the students, ask them how they felt at school, if they had a person they could go to if they were having a hard time. And a small group are identified as needing to really build connection. And then we give them that adult that they see every day. Within 6 weeks, we're seeing increased belonging for those students that experience that TLC each day. One of the more popular approaches that we've helped schools to implement is structured recess. So this is what Janaea did, where she had been harmful to another student. We know it's not good for students to have their one time outdoors, one time to move their bodies to be taken away, even though that's what so many schools do. So instead, we give them this alternative where you're ensuring the safety of all, but you're not taking away movement time for the students that have difficulty. And this has been one of the most useful parts of the model for many schools across the world. This one as well, we have practices at many schools where if a student has done something quite egregious, they're sent home for 1 day, 2 days, sometimes a week. They're missing out on learning. Often they're going back to the same environment where they developed some of the difficult behaviors. We say instead, have those students still come to school, give them a structured day, help them reflect, repair, complete their academic work. Instead of sending them home, you send them to this teaching environment where they can repair any harm that they've done while still completing their assignments. And we call that restorative in school suspension. And then lastly, family circle, lots of ways to build community with our families. We do that proactively. Families have to hear 8 positive messages about their child before they're able to receive a constructive or critical message about their student. And so sending text messages, sending home newsletters, calling, all these ways to make families feel like they're in community with the school and better equipped to support their students with the learning at home. And our theory of action on this is if teachers understand brain-body connection, they understand what's happening with kids, can know where on that Dr. Bruce Perry neurosequential model they may be and whether they not need regulation or to be related to, or if they're ready to learn because they're in their reasoning state. If students can come to school, have breakfast in the classroom as part of Strong Start, never have their outdoor time taken away as they're moving their bodies, they have a place in the room they can go if they do get upset. And most importantly, there's a person who cares about them consistently within their school community, then academics follows. And students who have all this support for non-academics end up having increased academic achievement because that support is in place. I have a bunch of slides that talk about our impact, but instead, I'll ask to play the video that shares that in a more interesting way than my slides would have. So let me stop sharing. And do we have that video that we could play? Awesome.
Imagine a classroom where every child feels safe, connected to others, and engaged in their learning. A place where well-being comes first. That's what the whole child model brings to schools, and we have the data to prove it. Let's take a look. Across the nation, chronic absenteeism is a huge problem, but the whole child model keeps more students in the classroom so they don't fall behind. In Washington, D.C., 75% of our partners reduced chronic absenteeism. In Texas, all of them did. We see a similar pattern with suspensions. In whole child schools, students are 32% less likely to be suspended than peers in similar schools. In one example, we reduced out-of-school suspensions by 85%. But hold on a second. Being in the classroom doesn't mean much if the kids aren't learning, right? Here's some good news. And it's all from independent researchers. Not only do whole child schools report better self-management and social awareness among students, they also experience statistically significant gains in reading and math. These kids outperform their peers in similar schools, and that's after just 1 year with the model. We see results like these because our practices are rooted in the neurosequential model of learning, a research-backed way of understanding how the brain learns. Basically, the best learning environments are grounded in safety, consistency, and care. And all of our free open source strategies do exactly that, with 3 pillars of support to meet every child where they are. We can't wait to show you how it works. Begin your journey today at wholechildmodel.org.
All right. So I'll pause there. I think we wanted to do a pause and see if this generated any questions for the group.
I have a question, if that's okay. I'm
Sure.
sorry, my video isn't on because my daughter has a fever, so I'm just sitting with her. Um, my question is that I read in about this study where they like did there was like a pediatric Auschwitz, and then they studied development from like 0 to 6 months, and they said that like children that had a lot of trauma during that month, like they correlated it to behavioral issues like for the rest of their lives.
Mm.
Um, and I guess like the study like tracked kids that were adopted before 6 months versus post 6 months, and like what that trauma kind of did to the brain in the long term. So I think that my question is that like when you're looking at looking in these areas where there is a lot of like fight or flight response, they go home and there's like that stimulation on a day-to-day level.
Mhm.
How do you kind of balance like I heard some of the statistics that were in the video, but like I guess what my question is that is there um like what is the likelihood of it really turning around like fundamentally that fight or flight response or like that danger instinct, and to get that
Mm.
stability and security in a long term basis?
Yeah, great question. And you raised some important research that we're definitely aware of, that impact of trauma, especially when it happens in the very early years. We think about that all the time in the structure of this model and all the ways that you can mitigate against the stress or toxic stress that that kind of experience creates within a child. One of the most effective ways to buffer that stress is through relationships. And there are other studies that have found when a child has even one person in their life that shows care and kindness for them, that they have a positive relationship, it can transform their outcomes. There's another one that shows like a student and the number of interactions they have. This is a child in foster care, and it's one of the examples that Dr. Bruce Perry shares, versus a typical student who comes from like a loving family. And it was something like 1,000 positive interactions to like 3 over the course of a week that researchers followed these 2 students. And it's for that reason that we created things like TLC, or like help teachers with their greetings each day, or operationalize and offer structure to the building of those kinds of relationships. Because against the odds, and even though, yes, ongoing trauma, because you go home to it, is really, really hard to address. But these positive relationships, when they happen consistently at school, can improve outcomes for students. I mean, I think you're speaking to the importance of wraparound and other services outside of school to address ongoing issues. But for the experience that students have within school, we're offering a bunch of things that we think are supportive.
Thank you. I mean, this is really amazing what you guys are doing, and it was so great to hear about it.
Thank you.
Hi, I had a question as well. I want to know why.
Hi. If you don't mind putting your question in the chat, we'll make sure we'll pick it up. Just in the interest of time, I think we should move on. There are just a couple more slides. That works?
Yeah.
Thank you. Cynthia, I think we can just continue with the slides. Thank you.
Oh, next up was going to be the secondary strong start video.
Okay, got it. I'll just play it. Yeah.
And then I could try to, while you're getting that ready, I could answer the question that is in the chat. It's one that we get so often. How does this work with academics? And it's integrated. So there's one video that we have. It's about 15 minutes of a teacher doing a structured literacy, like a phonics lesson with a group of 6 students. The other 20 students or so are around the room in centers. And you could watch this video looking for whole child model practices for 20 minutes. And you can watch this video looking for phonics, science of reading best practices, because both things are happening. The teacher is correcting a student who mispronounces a multisyllabic word, and a tone of voice that's supportive. It makes the student feel comfortable having made a mistake. To get the rest of the class to stop and focus, the teacher uses the language of safety, which is a whole child practice, in order to do so in an orderly way. For students to know what to do after that center rotation, they've got a visual schedule and a consistent routine. So like language, environment, tone of voice are happening even as the entire lesson is a strictly academic one. And that's the hope, that this is sort of not like a only on Fridays for 30 minutes, we learn about how to share and take turns, like SEL lesson. And instead, it's sort of ubiquitous and living in the environment where every interaction can support both students' academic development and those social and emotional needs that they bring to school. So I appreciate that question. And we definitely would see academics and emotions as interrelated and ideally happening in tandem.
Middle school is very special. They don't like to be told what to do, but they like to be invited. They are ready to start being accountable. They are ready to start being leaders. They are ready to start shining if they have the ways to do it.
I had the pleasure of working with a group of open-minded educators who came together and said, this has to work.
We do Strong Start every single morning. It's important to me because it's based in science and cognitive brain work. It's just the science of understanding what motivates kids.
Because it's connected to research, it enables us, it empowers us to know that if we do these things, students can learn and grow.
Strong Start, I recommend every teacher to do it. It's a great thing. It helps your class just get together and get to know each other.
It helps you communicate with your peers. It helps you just have a better day.
I have trouble calming down, and Strong Start helps me a lot with that.
People be like acting wild, so Strong Start is like a reset.
I think it helps by letting us express ourselves and share love around our classroom.
Oh, sí, ¿cómo estás? Oh, yo también. ¿Coge tu salud? So happy you're here. ¿Cómo estás? Feliz. Hola, mi amor. Okay, take your hoodie off, please.
At the beginning of class, we state our feelings.
Find one of the words on the wheel that best describes your
Stay confident.
9.
You get to pick a feeling.
I'm going to pick excited.
Relaxed. Peaceful.
Relaxed.
Nervous.
You go up to somebody who is feeling bad, or they come up to you, and you give them a hug or a handshake.
Most of those people, I didn't really know how they feel and all that. So it really helped me get to understand them more. It helped me build bigger bonds.
We do community building, so that's with the whole class.
Everybody repeat after me. Today I will do my best.
Today I will do my best.
To be my best.
To be my best.
Community building in middle school will be more like, let's just have them choosing what makes them feel like a group, like a family, like we're in this together.
I encourage them to get up and get physical.
It won't be long. It won't be long.
I give them a lot of leeway to move, to jump, to do whatever. They understand that when it's time for instruction, they have to bring it all back.
Good job, good job. Good job, let's take our seats. Thank you, guys.
With Strong Start, we get to do like partnering things because we can go with different people who may not talk too much.
Today you will have to capture basically this picture with your partner. Think of a caption for this photo.
You partner up with people, and who knows, you might make a new friend.
We're going to show you how to do double this.
Double this, double that, double this, double that, double this, that.
Double this and double that. That can help me like wake up and have a good laugh before class.
I've seen the purposeful partnering help a lot of our students who are not commonly seen in the classroom gather the bonds and gather the friendships to then take outside of the classroom.
Purposeful partnering helps build a relationship with my friends. It makes me feel better.
It made me feel proud of myself and that I was able to do things I can't normally do on my own with a friend.
Arms out, twist them, lock them, breathe in, breathe out. I think breathe and focus is like one of my favorites.
Everybody put their hand up in front of you like this, and then close your guys' eyes.
One of them is like you chase over your palm and then breathe in, and then hold and then breathe out.
It really helps me cool down, so I'm like going from up here to all the way down here.
We're able to go from 100 to 0 real quick.
Stand up, reach both arms out, and cross one arm over the other.
It gets me settled down, and it just helps me be ready for what we're going to learn that day in class. Breathe in a growth mindset.
I love it.
Breathe out a fixed mindset. Breathe in empathy. Breathe out being mean.
Sometimes at school I have like a difficult time like trying to realize what is for me. So I decided that my goal for today was to realize my purpose.
You're doing a great job, James.
We set goals for what we want to achieve throughout the class or through the day. I specifically like to choose act responsibly because sometimes I get carried away and I lose focus. So I'm reminded of our Strong Start and I'll get myself back on track.
Even in a classroom, after we finish Strong Start, some of them will say, if someone is struggling with a question or does not want to participate, the scholars would then say, well, what was your goal for today? Remember you said you're going to do this? Here you go, here's your chance to do it. So it really, it comes full circle.
My goal for today is to own my actions, and how I'm going to do that is by, if I do something, don't try to blame it on somebody else.
A lot of my students decided, hey, I see you up there and you're babbling and I might want to try something else. Let me jump in. They'll even say like, can you sit down? I'm doing this and I'm putting a joke in and it's going to be what everybody wants. And I just sit back and I marvel at their leadership skills.
Take it away. They've taken ownership of it. They put their own spin on it. It's not just reading the slides. It's not just giving directions as to what to do. So each person brings their own personality.
The impact of Strong Start has been tremendous. Those strategies are not just for school. Those strategies are for life.
We are like the life of the party when it comes to Strong Start.
During like the purposeful partnering and the singing, I get like excited. It's funny, but at the same time, it helps me like stay regulated.
When she calls the students to come up and do Strong Start, she's putting her trust in them to do it correctly. So it helps us trust her.
If we can create a community where children feel safe, they feel loved, everything else kind of comes together.
I'm perfect just the way I am. Oh no!
It makes me feel like free.
I love that video. Awesome. What are some reflections? I am seeing there are a couple of things on the chat. Let me see. Happy classroom is equal to happy learning. Rohit, thank you for that. Okay. All right. A couple of questions coming in. Cynthia, I believe we can take the questions and jump into breakout rooms to dive deeper, and we'll leave a couple more links here when we come back to the main room to see other resources. That works?
Sure. Take the questions now, though, from the chat.
We can take the ones that are there. I think Zara is asking, could this model work in any environment? We have experienced a lot of skepticism in the parents that the whole child approach is taking away their attention from academics.
Yeah. And there was an earlier question from the same person, I think that's related, around whether we get pushback on it. Is there generally community buy-in? It's a great question. That means I forgot to name Transcend's approach to community-driven design, which aims to get that buy-in. So with this model and with other approaches that Transcend shares with schools, we always want to involve students, families, teachers, community members to get their input, with the understanding that a one-size-fits-all model, doing it exactly the way it was done in another environment with differences in setting, is never going to work. We need the community buy-in. We need the community's input to figure out ways that this needs to get tweaked or refined to be the most effective with the community it's serving. One of the ways we do that is through developing a design team at schools, where the school leader, another leader, a group of teachers, staff who work on mental health or social and emotional learning come together, and they interview students. They talk with community members through listening sessions. They pilot aspects of the model in their classroom to figure out what needs to change before implementing it across all classrooms in a school. That's just one of the ways in which we would aim to have the community buy-in as we're implementing this with communities. And I think that helps to get the families invested. The part two of your question around pushback, we do experience that, and it takes some convincing. It's helpful now that we have such strong data that this model is both increasing belonging and academic achievement. But we certainly have to share all the data on the importance of a psychologically safe environment in order for learning to be optimized. That is hard. That was something I experienced, where sometimes parents would say, just take away his recess or just suspend him, even about their own child, especially if a parent has experienced very punitive discipline in their own upbringing. And we would do a ton of things with families to address that, where we bring families together and we do some of the practices with them so that they feel what it feels like. Or we send things home that families can implement within the home, and they see how effective it is. Things like the centering space in the classroom. A lot of our families set that up in the home, and then they see how effective it is, and then that helps them to get buy-in too. But Zara, you're naming something that is a real challenge, and we're constantly trying to either share data or share strategies to help families feel the confidence in this model. I don't think I see another question.
Yeah, I think we're good to go into the breakout rooms. Just a little bit of context. We'll be in smaller rooms. Cynthia will be in one room, and other team members from Transcend, Jeff and Indy, will be in another. This is a great space to voice your questions, try to understand more about the practices that we saw through in the slides. Just to quickly reiterate some of the things we saw. I'm also just pasting notes around the pillars and the elements that we saw about the whole child model. And I think there's family circle as well. I'm forgetting, but the last one is family circle. Yeah, the rooms are about to open in about 5 seconds. Please give these a read. Use that space to really voice the challenges and the constraints that you also face in your spaces as well. And we'll be back in about 10 to 12 minutes in the main room and close. All right, the rooms are open.
Hey, welcome back, folks. We're going to steer this to a bit of a close in our last few minutes together. Would love everybody to come on over to the chat box. We've been able to get in some breakout rooms. We've heard a lot. Like, as we leave this space, I'm curious to know what's one big thing that you're leaving with, or what's one big thought that you're sitting with as you walk out of this space. So come back over to the chat box with me one final time. One big thing that you're leaving with, one big thought that you're sitting with, one big takeaway. Thank you, Cynthia, for getting us started with the resources. Maybe that's a big thought or a big takeaway. I'd love to hear from everybody else in the chat, not just one big takeaway that you are sitting with as you walk out. Yeah, thank you for that time. So one big takeaway over in the chat. Thank you for that, Ty. Let's hear from others and see people typing. I'd love to hear from everybody that's with us. Yeah, I love that, Yuki. Thank you for that. Care and empathy can lead to rigorous academic learning. Yeah. Balance and assertiveness. Love that. Yeah. Thanks, Nilasha. And high expectations is undoubtedly a form of care. Yeah. A strong start, the power in the strong start, right? And that with routines can build so much. Caring is not pampering. Yeah. Like giving them a safe and assertive presence. Yeah. Investment and buy-in. Yeah. Be deliberate in implementing routines. Tier 2 and tier 2 structure. Tier 1 and tier 2 structures. Yeah. How do we differentiate well-being and culture? Thanks for that, Amalia. Thank you, Nidhi, as well. Lots of focus on the strong starts. Yeah, how to use love and care to bridge academic gaps. Yeah, so much at our core. Yeah, yeah. Space plays a big role. Yeah, amazing. While these continue to come in, um, Cynthia, I just want to say a very big thank you. Not only for coming here and prepping for this and spending your morning with us, and I know a lot of thought and care went into basically thinking about today, but also just for doing many years of work that has led to something so incredibly beautiful and impactful for kids, that we're able to share it. My hope is a little bit of a taste of what you're seeing in the chat box of the impact of this last 75-minute ad. So just a very big thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And I love reading this chat. So appreciate all the takeaways people are sharing. And I'm happy to be a thought partner. I put my email in my breakout, but I'll put it here in this large group as well. So Indy is my colleague, and both of us are happy to help if you're trying to implement some of these things and you want a thought partner.
Awesome. Okay, folks. If you want to be, thank you for that, Cynthia. Thank you, Indy. If you want to basically be aligned with us and come on for more programming, we'll be doing more virtual visits as time goes on. So please stay tuned for that. If you're following us on social media, you'll get updates with that. If you are interested in starting a school of your own, we would very much like to be in touch. I'm going to put a quick poll up right now, which is just going to basically help you to give us some very quick feedback and also indicate if there is any interest. It'll take you about 15 seconds. And then once you fill that out, you can, and we will close this space out. Have a good evening, everybody.
There should be a poll up on your screen. It'll take about, as Sandeep said, 10 seconds, and we would love to get that information. And when you're done, feel free to drop off. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay. All right. Thank you. We're getting some trickle in. Thank you, everyone. And I think we should